Privyet, it's Influx, and welcome back to Level 25. This week I'm joined by a special guest, Ookthelibrarian. Ook, how are you doing?
Spasibo, I'm doing great. Or I guess I should say better than average, considering what we're going to be talking about today.
Yes, today is the stats episode, getting to review all the numbers from 2021. I did some research. I know you did some research. But before we go into that, you are a librarian IRL, yes?
That is correct, yes.
What are some book recommendations that you would have?
Oh, goodness. Wow, you would ask that just right off the bat. Yeah, that's part of the job is trying to figure out what other people would like in addition to, just there's no one book for everybody, but I will say I just finished my second book by Andy Weir, the author of The Martian. I read that one a couple of years back and just I couldn't put it down. And I just finished his newest one, Project Hail Mary. It's another science fiction book, so if that's your sort of thing, then that is definitely something that I would put on your radar. And given the group of people that we have, if any of them are readers, I'm sure they've read Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. That one always a good pick, and the audiobook by Will Wheaton is definitely very good.
Well, I do enjoy reading. Science fiction is not exactly my thing, but I love hearing what types of books that people recommend. I love children's books, especially. Kate DiCamillo is one of my favorite authors. So,
That's great. I'm a children's librarian. That's actually what I've been doing for the last 4 years.
and you do incorporate that into your stream some. You do book readings, yeah?
I do. I'm don't have anything set in stone yet on dates, but I've got plans to read The Murder of Roger Ackroyd this year because it just hit the public domain on January 1st. Because of the way Twitch is done, you really have to do stuff that's in the public domain. But that also means Winnie the Pooh is fair game this year, so I don't
Hey!
know if I'll be reading that, but we'll have to see.
Well, if you do, I've got a Winnie the Pooh sweater that I will bring in support. So,
Sounds
not that you'll
great.
see me as a Twitch viewer, but you know. Well, we got a lot of ground to cover, so maybe we just jump right into the numbers. Were there any stats that really stuck out to you from the last year?
Well, I've been throwing numbers around ever since you contacted me, and it's it's hard to find something that is statistically significant, considering that this is the first full year that we have had.
Yeah, I feel like in the commentary, especially in recent months, we've been talking about how players have just improved on average, and across the entire player base, everyone's just gotten so much better. And so I was curious what kind of numbers we could find in support of that.
Well, I can start off with that, especially with qualifying. Qualifying is really easy to pull numbers from because, partially because our website team does such a good job keeping up with every little detail.
For real.
But qualifying is one of the few things that we have pretty much a complete record of. We're missing some of the matches from the earlier months. So having a full record of qualifying is great. Yeah, I know you were talking in the Discord about the 17 club players who
Yes.
have managed to get to 17 in qualifying. A reminder that didn't happen until I think the third or fourth month. I don't have that number in front of me. Packy was the first, unsurprisingly, but during that first year, 2020, from May through November, there were only five qualifiers who managed to hit 17 during the year. Last year, I'm having to do the math here, 13 of them, 13 new players were added to the 17 club, as well as three, Floyd, Frank, and yourself, who managed to hit 18. We're only into the first month of qualifying. It just finished up before we recorded this. We've already got three new players who've managed to hit the 17 club for the first time this year as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely been surprising. You were one of them, by the way,
Hey,
right?
I'm one of them. I was very, very happy to hit that. I've been looking for that mark for a long time.
Yeah, congratulations.
Well, thank you.
For that number to grow bigger at this point, we're kind of looking at new players to come in. So I don't know if we'll necessarily see more than 13 new 17 club members, but as far as like individual 17 qualifying runs in 2020, like you said, it's a partial year of data, but there were 7 qualifying runs that hit level 17, and in 2021 there were 69 runs that were 17 or better.
Nice.
I think we're already on pace to beat that with 11 17s this January and 1 18.
I was about to say, I thought it was 12. Yeah, I was counting the 18 in that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's been the amazing thing is how many it was. And honestly, we had 25 separate players who qualified and competed in at least one round during 2021. So seeing that number go up, it's to be expected. One of our newest players, Adelito, just joined in January and hit 17 immediately. So I think it's very possible, given how many new players we saw in 2021, that we could blow right past all of these numbers in 2022.
I would certainly love to see it. The new competitors can be some of the most exciting. Like you mentioned, Adelito just coming in with a 17, and we have no clue how they're going to stack up when it comes to this first round of competition. Adelito actually messaged me just before recording here as part of the mentorship program. And they said that they felt really lucky to get a 17, but we'll see if that's just humility come this Friday.
Yeah, the Adelito Watchman match is definitely one that I've got my eye on. That's going to be one of the most interesting matches of the weekend, I think.
So you mentioned that there were 25 unique competitors in 2021?
25 who all actually made it into a round one match. You remember at the very beginning of 2021, the rules had not hit their current level. What we were doing at the very beginning was if there were more than 16 people who were attempting to qualify, there would be a play-in. That was removed. So actually there were 27 who would have qualified, I believe. I took them off the list just because I've got so many different stats I'm throwing around here. But I know Hibimato qualified and had to step out, wasn't able to make it to an actual tournament match. And I believe Ethan hit a top 16 time, but didn't make it out of the play-in.
So the numbers that I had run were that there were 12 unique semifinalists, 9 unique finalists, and 4 unique champions in 2021. So it's interesting how that number seems to dwindle. I mean, obviously towards the championship, but kind of in an expected way. I'm curious if we'll see more semifinalists, more people reaching that level in 2022.
Definitely possible, considering that our champion and our runner-up from last year weren't even part of the community at the beginning of 2021, at least as far as the Dr. Mario Championships are concerned.
Yeah. So as far as hot times go, you said that you did the numbers about the comparing 2020s to 2021?
Absolutely. So at the end of 2020, the 6 to 9 hot times, only 2 of our current top 20 times come from 2020.
Wow.
The other 18 out of that top 20 were created in 2021. The top time dropped from 6 minutes flat to 5:23, which that's a full 30 seconds. And believe it or not, you're going to see that across the board. For 8 to 11, you can go all the way down to the top 24 and only find one time from 2020.
Wow.
The top time there dropped from 6:58 to 6:33. And then in our 2 retired categories, the 10 to 14 hot times, 2 out of the top 20 were in 2020. The time dropped from 9:55 to 9:26. And in the 13 to 17, again, 2 out of the top 20 came from 2020, and it dropped from an 11:49 to an 11:08. It's just across the board, we're looking at 30-second time improvements. I
Yeah.
don't think we're going to see that again in 2022, but we're still going to see quite a bit of improvement, and it's going to be very fascinating to see where things go.
What I had looked at with the hot times was the clear rate, because that was the tiebreaker in 2021 for those who didn't end up with points for reaching the semifinals or better. The clear rate for the 6 to 9 hot time was a 2.375. For 8 to 11, 2.339. For the 10 to 14, 2.177. And the 13 to 17 was a 2.088. So the clear rate obviously lowering as the level blocks increase. It's easier to clear viruses faster, but nothing sub 2. But all of those were sub 2.5, which, like, I mean, we've been holding the standard, I feel, about 3 seconds per virus as, like, you know, a good time.
Well, obviously, everything is going to be a great time with with some of the players we've got going on now.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you mentioned clear rate, because that does lead into one of the other stats that I ran the numbers on. You know, we did a rules change this year. I say we as if I were involved in it. I was not involved in it. But, you know, there's been a rule change this year about how points are distributed.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, this is silly, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I ran the numbers based on the 2021 results to see how, if at all, the championship layout would have been based on the current rule set.
Sure.
And let me see. I think maybe 2 of the places stayed the same. Dimwit still got the number 1 seed. That wasn't going to be changing at all. But the interesting thing is that Frank, who had 3 tournament wins under his belt, would have had a 4th if he didn't have to drop out in November, possibly. You know, he seemed like the unbeatable machine at the time, right up until the end of December. Frank would have been the 5th seed. As you recall, he was the number 2 seed. Yes.
Wow.
The top 16 would have been Dimwit, Packy, Floyd, Leviticus, Frank, Sarah, Savage, Watchma, Chris Bidwell, DM Hero, Swong, Dars, Dave Smith, myself, the Dave, and you at the number 16 seed.
Oh, scrape it in there. I was listening for my name the whole time.
2 of the people who were in who were in the actual tournament were Ibar and John Det Flindo would have been left out, with Dave and I just barely squeezing in 2 of the newer spots. So the thing that really made me think, hey, what does this mean? It means consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Really, you know, before, anybody who couldn't make it into a semifinals was not going to get any points, and you're really focusing on that clear rate.
Yeah.
With this new rule set, if you show up 6 times, and manage to get into the top 16, that is the same thing as winning 1 championship.
Mm-hmm.
And not attending any of the other tournaments. So this year is really going to be about who can manage to get in, who can manage to, you know, stay in that top 16 and find ways to just pull it out. And of course, it's going to help. Every other win that you get is going to help, but just being there is going to guarantee you a point, and that's really going to be helpful when it comes to December of 2022.
I really like the point restructuring with that regard. That same thought occurred to me as I was just, you know, mulling things over. Like, if you can just show up every month, you can, and manage to get in the top 16, you can just get straight 11 points.
And of course, getting into that top 16 is getting harder and harder as we
Yeah,
go. But
for sure.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
And that just feels kind of right. I mean, in the end, you want the top 16 players for the Invitational in December to be the players who were, you know, involved throughout the year.
Right.
So, you know, and that's a great amount of hope for people who might be frustrated with their round 1 matchups. You're being rewarded for it. If you can get into round 2, great. But, you know, there is a point to you being there at the very least.
Absolutely. And I will say, just as a caveat, that on my end isn't saying anything negative about last year's setup, because honestly, having the silver bracket, that was such a great experience. I wouldn't have
Oh yeah.
traded that at all. I was the 16 seed at the end of the 2020 season, and it was just another month of coming in and getting beaten 2-0. So having a chance to play in the silver bracket was a lot of fun. So yeah, even though I would have benefited from this new rule restructuring, I don't want it. I don't want anybody to think that I think that the old one was in any way a bad way of doing it. It was a very interesting way of doing it, as this is going to be a different but also interesting way of doing it.
Yeah, I think that you hit it right on the head there, that it's not that there was a problem being fixed, but maybe just something could be working a little better or just differently, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I think I'm excited for the new rule sets as well.
As am I.
Well, I was looking a lot at speedrun.com. I'm one of those players who focuses a lot on that aspect of it. I put a lot of stress on the personal improvement aspect, and what I am truly capable of, given no time restrictions whatsoever, basically, as how my personal life works out to be. The numbers that I ran were looking at the 0 to 10 category in particular, because I feel like that has more bearing on competitive play. We tend to run more in that level block. So the 0 to 10 world record at the start of 2021 was an 11:19 by Inari. By the end of the year, that had been lowered 12 seconds to an 11:07. So that's about a 2% improvement. The 20th time, which I thought significant because, month to month we have about 16 players in the tournament. And a lot of those players are, occupying the gaps between the 1 and the 20th spot on speedrun.com. So 20th place was Adirondack Rick with a 15:06. By the end of the year, that time had been lowered over 90 seconds to a 13:23 by JB Henry. That's an 11% improvement.
Absolutely. Rick is sitting in 31st place right now.
Yeah. The average lowered from a 13:31 over the span of the top 20 to a 12:32. The average for top 20 is a 12:32.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And that's with only 4 new names being introduced to the leaderboard. It's not like, a new wave of people just came over and, pushed out all the old runners. The 16 of those runners were, just improving over the course of the year and managed to lower that average.
Absolutely. I'm looking at a lot of those numbers myself right now. A couple of the things that really stick out to me are, and I think we had two things that happened in 2020 that drove up the interest in this game. One is the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
The other is just COVID.
Yeah.
A lot of people sitting at home thinking about viruses. I think Plague Inc. saw a massive increase in interest, and people are morbidly curious about these things, and they've got 6 senses of humor. And so a lot of people started picking up Dr. Mario because, it's a game about fighting diseases. But if you look at those top 20 times, only 2 players, Heather, Serious Producer, and Ness Cardinality, are the only 2 players in the top 20 whose time comes from before 2020.
Wow.
Like, everyone in the top 20 has created a time, and it goes down. I think Cat underscore is the next one down at number 23, and you have to go down to Adirondack Rick. So there's only 3 in the top 20, in the top 30.
That's crazy.
Now, I was looking to see if I could figure out how we can say we've got new runners who are actually taking an interest in the game and not just putting a time on there. So I looked at when every player's second run was to see who is interested enough to get on 0 to 10 and do it again. Because, we'll get a lot of players who will just submit one time and go on with it because they're trying to get a time in practically every NES category or something. A
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
people do that. It's great. But those aren't the players that we want to focus on because they're not the ones who are taking the time to really get into this game and are not taking a real interest in the game.
Hmm.
In 2015, there was only one player who played a second run. I think at the time there were only three names on the board, ACMLM, Cat underscore, and Packy.
Huh.
By 2016, two of them had added a second run. 2017, 10 players added a second run. 2018, 12 players did. 2019, 8 players did. 2020, 26 new players added a second run. And in 2021, it was 24. So we've had
Oh my
50 new
goodness.
players join the community with an interest in really playing since the start of 2020.
That's a lot more than I thought it was going to be. I wasn't expecting the numbers to inflate that much.
They are split between the tops and the bottom of the board.
Hmm.
Down at the bottom of the board, you see a lot of players who only have one run, but even as low as 130th, we've got somebody who put up a second run, and has actually put up a third one since then. It's somebody who's got an over 30-minute 0 to 20 or 0 to 10 time, but is still trying to get better. Three of the top 10 players put in their second run in 2021. Now, granted, one of them was Dimwit, who just put up an amazing top time in like 2019 or 2020, and they just never came back to 0 to 10. But still, that's saying something.
And what I love about hearing those numbers is, well, my mind goes immediately to the silver bracket. We just have a lot of players who are interested in improving their times. Maybe they're not, maybe they're just submitting 2 runs. Maybe they aren't playing this game, every other day for the entire year. But
Who would do that?
not I. No,
Oh, no. No,
no,
certainly
surely
not.
not. Anyway, but the silver bracket just encouraging those players who understand that they don't have the time and energy to put into, squeezing into that top 16, but want to enjoy the community, enjoy the competition, and enjoy like their own journey of self-improvement. And the silver bracket is just an amazing opportunity for that.
Absolutely. And that's going to be one of the great things about it. I fully expect to be the crown the king of the silver bracket by the end of the year because we're getting so many new people who are coming in who are just really quality players. And honestly, the elites, the top tier players are increasing as well.
Hmm.
Another statistic that I looked at was taking a look at the 0 to 20 times again for at the beginning of 2020 or at the beginning of 2021 and at the end of 2021, and then seeing who is within certain percentages of the world record time. Now, remember that world record time has dropped 54 seconds
Yeah.
from January 1st of 2020 to 2021. So, that's another 5 seconds you've got to take off your time to be counted in the top 10% or whatever. So players within 10% of that time, there were 6 at the start of 2020, now there are 7. Within 20% of the world record, there were 10 players, now there are 15. So the top 15,
Hmm.
0 to 20 players are within 20% of the world record. That's 6.5 minutes, I think, which over a 45-minute speed run is not a ton of time.
No. Especially when you
And
consider how much randomness and variability there is over that time frame.
absolutely, in a platformer, that would be a ton of time. In something like this, where a single player could see a 5-minute swing just out of nowhere, yeah, it's amazing. You get up to as high as within 50%. There's another 9 new players who have entered that ring, and again, that's with the amount of time that you need being shrunk.
Hmm.
So we're even seeing not just an increase in new players, but an increase in players who are getting to that elite level.
I am very excited for what this year brings on speedrun.com. Uh, Over the course of 2021, on December 31st of 2020, there was only one player who had an 11-minute 0 to 10, and that was the world record holder Inari. Over the course of the following year, 5 other players added their name to that list. Um, we're closing in, and the whole reason I started speedrunning Dr. Mario in the first place was because Inari is the world record holder for almost every version that I could find. And so I really want Inari to be toppled at some point. If not by me, then by Frank or Floyd or Packy or whoever can manage it. But
There's at least one board that Frank did top Inari for just a couple of weeks this year.
yes, yeah.
I don't remember which board it was, but yes, he's still a machine. He still manages to do things that even Inari has trouble with.
And Frank has been getting really close. I've seen a couple runs come within 30 seconds of world record for a 0 to 20 category. That's almost nothing. So
Crazy.
I think it can happen, and I'm calling it that it will.
Sounds good to me. So, we're going to get back into tournament talk. The two other things that I looked into just for funsies, but also because they are important. One of them is the number of female players that we've got in the brackets. And I know gender identity is a broad topic. It's a difficult one to nail down. I am only working with players whose gender I am certain of. I'll say that much. And I hope I don't misgender anybody. I'm not going to throw names out there, but I will mention that in the first tournament in May of 2020, there were 0 female competitors.
Wow.
In July of 2021, we had 6 qualifiers who were female. That is the peak. In May of 2021, 5 of them, we had 5 female qualifiers, and all 5 made the top 16. This year, as you know, we had 2 players, Savage and Sarah, both make the finals.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah making it for a second time. That esports is such a male-dominated world that it is so great to see a game where there's both interest and quality players who are female.
Yes.
And where they feel safe and comfortable being there. I can't speak for the female players and say that that's true across the board, but I hope that that is the case, and that is where that is the environment that's being created right now.
That's the big takeaway I like to bring from that, is that I know that there are quite a few players in the community who are very passionate about creating safe and constructive environments for everyone, regardless of gender identity or any social backgrounds that they may identify with. And just to have, that understanding, I think, is important to building the community spirit.
Absolutely. So yeah, I definitely wanted to mention that one. Also, I've got some partial data. I tried to watch both the 2020 and 2021 final matches, and I was trying to count up fat logs, sweet teas, and lightning bolts that I saw across all of the matches.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, about seven games in, my eyes started crossing, so I didn't get through the last 2. But would you like to take a guess at which one of those 3 clear types was the least common?
Fat logs.
That's what I would have thought. I saw 1 lightning bolt across 7 matches.
No
For
way.
7 games. 1. The first lightning bolt that I could see was in the finals game 3 of 2020. I didn't see a single one in 2021. There was one that was called a lightning bolt, but it didn't quite fit the criteria. Fat logs, even though they weren't named until this year, there were still 3, 5, 7, 8 that I saw in the 2020. And actually, sweet teas and cross clears are such a big part of high level play.
Mm-hmm.
I knew they were a big part of Dimwit's play in particular, but when you go back and you watch looking for that sort of thing, it's amazing to see how many times there are cross clears going on. There are players thinking in two dimensions. It's really hard to do, and seeing them do it on a regular basis. I saw 10 Ts in one game of last year's finals. It was amazing.
What I love about those sweet teas in particular is you have the potential to reduce the number of units of a color that you need to clear viruses. You know, if you've got two separate viruses, it will take you normally six yellows to clear those two yellow viruses, but with a T you can reduce that to 5 or maybe even fewer if, you know, viruses permitting. The other clears, like a lightning bolt and a fat log. A lightning bolt is very execution heavy typically. It involves at least a few tucks. So I'm not entirely surprised to hear that, you know, with tournament nerves, people are willing to take the drop time rather than risking a missed tuck or something.
Yeah, I run into that myself. You know, I play a pretty heavy tuck style of play, and I've caught myself during tournament play, if I'm not, you know, well behind and knowing that I'm well behind, I won't do some of the plays that I would normally do because it's just they're high risk, but they're high reward, but they're also very high risk.
Yeah.
So yeah, the more I thought about that, the more I realized how unlikely it would be to see a lot of lightning bolts. And also on those upper levels, there's not as much space in between the pills.
That's true.
You need certain spacings to create these things, and on levels 6, 7, 8, and 9, that's going to be much more common than it will be at 13 through 17. Okay, I've left you in suspense long enough. So a couple of hours ago, I sent you a message saying that's 2 hours I won't get back of my life. I thought it's time to settle one debate, maybe not once and for all, but for fun. I wanted to see how well high has done versus medium, medium has done versus high, and fever, chill, and off have done versus each other. Influx, there are 153 matches that were played and recorded last year and uploaded to YouTube.
Yeah.
I didn't watch them all, but I did check right before the countdown to see who was playing what, and if players were playing against each other with different settings, then I wanted to record that. I have the numbers in front of me, and I haven't even pulled them up. It took me 2 hours worth of watching.
Oh my goodness.
And if this is not significant data, then I'm not sure what I'm going to do. So I've totaled up one, and now I'm going to total up all of them, and we're going to see across all of these games, high has a record against medium of 93 and 101. So medium actually beats high about 8 times more. It's completely insignificant. I don't have it separated out by rounds because I literally just pulled the data and made it myself. Or made it just now. Fever defeated Chill 31 times. Fever defeated Off 58 times. Chill defeated Fever 26 times. Chill defeated Off 45 times. And Off defeated Fever 47 times and Chill 48 times. So, from the looks of things, if you are playing against an Off player, Fever is your best bet. And if you're playing against a Chill player, looks like Off might be your best bet. I will have to play around with these numbers and see how all that works.
Ook, I hate to say it, but I think you might have gone off the deep end here.
It's very possible. It's very possible. I can tell you that Packy almost always plays on Chill. Dimwit almost always plays on Off. Leviticus almost always plays on Medium. And you didn't start winning consistently until you switched to Chill. So I'm just going to throw that out there. No, actually, I was looking at the finals, and I was like, oh, look, Influx is playing Chill, and he's going to win all of it. But you did switch it around some, so by the time we get to the highest rounds, most of the time players are playing on Off, with the exception of Packy. So
I'm all about equal representation. I want a little bit of Fever, a little bit of Chill. I am an Off player at heart because I just listen to other music while I'm playing Dr. Mario. but I feel sorry for the viewers, so I put it on chill when I need to, you know?
Yeah, that's usually what I do. Is if I'm listening to other music, especially during the tournament, then I'll put it on chill to represent my team. But I'll be having my other music going on in my head. Although during my matches or during my practice runs, I've got the audio on my ear. I'm just listening to the chill music and talking to everybody in chat.
Well, at the very least, we know that you can be successful playing high or medium. And dare I say, you can be successful regardless of which music choice you choose.
It seems like that might be that way, yes.
Well, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast and putting in so much of your time to evaluating these numbers. I feel like I learned some interesting things, and I look forward to contributing to the numbers in 2022.
Thanks very much. Yeah, it was a lot of fun doing this research, and I just appreciate the chance to be out here.
And as always, thank you all for listening in at home. Until next time, in Dr. Mario and in life, bless RNG.